from our 2015 NASCAR XFINITY Series Championship Team Crew Chief, and that's Scott Graves. And this is your first career NASCAR XFINITY Series Championship. Congratulations. How does it feel to be a National Series champion in NASCAR?
Just feels great to know, to be a champion at this level. You think of competitive sports and around the world. This is one of the top ones to me, and to be able to get a championship in this series was it's an honor.
Questions for our crew chief, champion crew chief. We'll start here with Reed. We'll go over here to my man to the left, and we'll go to Kyle.
Reed Spencer with NASCAR Wire Service. Scott, congratulations.
Thank you.
Was it a tough call to bring him into the pits when the three other guys you were racing stayed out?
No, I mean, we needed the tires. For us, we thought having fresh tires on it was going to put us in a better position. That we were going to be up right behind the leaders. Felt like we could race for the lucky dog at that point, so that we knew if we could be in the lucky dog position, and the wave around situation worked for those other guys, we're basically going to be on even ground. With the number of laps that were left, we figured that was our best option at that point.
Let's go to my man here, Kyle, and then Lee.
Chris Green, South Dade News Leader. How nerve-wracking was it for you towards the end of the race, especially being back in the pack around some of those lap-down cars?
For sure, it was nerve-wracking. For me, it was bigger earlier in the race. I guess middle of the race when the 42 and the 54 were so dominant, and they came through the field, and we got I knew when we were in a situation when we were a lap down, and the other guys weren't. That's when we were most vulnerable. But once they ended up being on the same lap as us, then that helped out quite a bit.
Let's go to Kyle, far right, Scott, and then we'll go to Lee in the middle.
Kyle Magda, Race Chaser Online. Scott, just talk about the relationship between you and Chris Buescher. I know you were with, I think you were with Ricky Stenhouse Jr. for his rookie campaign, if I'm not mistaken. What were you able to take from that and just to work with Chris in his rookie season and then now to the championship?
I learned a lot, really. I guess in 2013 I was with Ricky, and really learned a lot through that year about the teamwork and putting together a good team and what it requires. And so then in 14, when I got the chance to work with Chris and really put our own team together, that really helped as far as getting the foundation of things together.
Let's go right here to Lee in the middle.
Lee Spencer, Motorsport.com. Can you just talk about Chris and how much he's matured as a driver on and off the track? I mean, to watch him tonight and other nights, he basically goes out there and does what he needs to do. I mean, he said he wished he could have raced, but he knew what the big picture was, and he stuck with the game plan. Yes,
exactly. Last year the maturity was there. It's hard to say that he's grown a lot because he's been that mature and that solid right from the start. This year I think we just as a team got better, cars got better. Chris is racing. He definitely grew when you look at where we were in the stats and how we improved from last year. So he's always just been solid, and I knew I could count on him. We got through the last month of racing. Even we knew we were kind of in that situation where we just had to be really careful and not give up the big points days, and he did a really good job of managing all that.
Let's go to the far right over here to Zach.
Zach at Tanzaveti, fun stretch. Did the pace of the top two leaders, did that throw you off a little bit, putting that many people a lap down? Did that change your strategy at all?
Yeah, it surprised me to see, because we haven't seen that in a while, to see two cars just be that dominant. It surprised me for sure. I didn't think we would be in that position where we would be a lap down, so that did catch us a little off guard. Like I say, we were just lucky enough that they were so dominant over everybody that it put everyone we were competing against really in the same situation.
Other questions for Scott? Excuse me. Let's go to Bob, and then we'll go to Kenny.
Bob Hockhurst, ESPN. How much of a challenge will it be to repeat for you guys next year?
Challenge for sure. I mean, it's this going through this year and understanding how difficult it is. I mean, you look at the guys we were competing against. I mean, you can't have a bad day. You can't have a DNF. And there's obviously going to be some really good people coming up and good equipment next year as well. So for sure, it's going to be a challenge. Love to have the opportunity to go back and try, though.
Final question here with Kenny Bruce.
Kenny Bruce, NASCAR.com. Scott, how difficult is it to run most of the season? You know, obviously you're trying to win at the end of the year too, but race defensively, I guess, after your mindset, you know, for most of the year has been totally different from that. Is it hard to make that switch, and is it any less satisfying to not be able to go out there and try to race for the championship, knowing you're protecting rather than going after it?
It's hard. It's more frustrating, I think, than anything, because I think early on, you know, even last year when we were trying to get the first win, it was a much more just, you know, we would go for it. We would try to take advantage of situations, and knowing there might be a little bit of risk, but the reward was going to be there. And even early this year, we raced like that in a few places, like, you know, Dover, getting the win there. We knew, you know, the way that worked out, we took a little bit of a risk there, but it paid off. Later in the year, I don't know that I could have done that or would have done that, just knowing the downfall to it on the other side. So it was frustrating for sure. I know the last month or so, Chris and I would talk about that we can't wait to just go back and be able to race and you know, not have to worry about the point side of it.
Scott, congratulations on this championship, and enjoy it. And certainly worthy champions, the number 60 Fastenal Ford team for Roush Fenway. And like I said, enjoy this championship.
We will. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, we're now going to hear from our 2015 NASCAR Driver Championship owner. That is Jack Roush from Roush Fenway Racing. This is Roush Fenway Racing's 5th NASCAR Xfinity Series Driver Championship. Their first title came in 2003 with driver Greg Biffle. Then they won again in 2007 with Carl Edwards. And then back-to-back championships in 2011 and 2012 with Ricky Stenhouse Jr. Roush Fenway Racing leads the series in driver championships with 5. Congratulations, Jack. I'm sure these never get old, but just talk about the significance of this championship with the number 60 Fastenal Ford.
It has been a great year for us. I'm recovering from a cold. I'll apologize for being a little hoarse, but it's been a great year for us. This is a traditional, the way the championships had worked out in a traditional fashion before the Chase was introduced to the Cup Series. You have to win the races when you can, and you have to minimize the points lost on the day when you can't be your best. And unlike the sprint series, where it's focused on winning races, and you don't have to worry so much about giving up on a bad day. But Chris was he was on his game this year. Scott, the crew chief, was on his game. They managed not to. They won 2 races and managed not to give up points on days when they weren't their best. And that is what got us to this point. I think I've been in the Xfinity Series for 25 years. I've been in the Cup Series for 28 years. I think we started on our third year in the Cup Series. We started racing Xfinity cars. But Xfinity Series is a great place for drivers to establish themselves and earn a rite of passage into the Sprint Cup. And we've enjoyed having a number of rookies there. We've had a lot of success with our drivers in the Xfinity Series as well as the Truck Series, and of course we've won 2 championships in the Cup Series as well.
Questions now for Jack. We'll take some. We'll go with Reed, and over here to the right with Kyle, and then Al.
Reed Spencer with the NASCAR Wire Service. Congratulations.
Yes, sir.
Speaking of that rite of passage, now that Chris is the champion of the series, can you shed any light on future plans for him next year, perhaps?
We're still not sure what his arrangement's going to be next year. He will be involved in in a Cup car to some extent, but whether it's a part-time program or a full program, we're still in the midst of finalizing the conditions of that. We've got a number of possibilities, but we're not ready to announce that today.
Let's go to the far right over here, Jack, to your far right.
Kyle Magda, Race Chaser Online. Jack, what made you decide to take a chance on Chris to get to this moment today that he wins the championship?
Please repeat that.
All right. I have a cold too, so I feel you. My question is, what made you decide to take a chance on Chris leading up to this moment tonight when he wins the championship?
Chris was really identified by the Reagan family first, who gave him lodging to bring him into the Charlotte area. He's from Texas, of course, and you needed to have a connection to be able to finish high school and to work your way up the chain here in the Charlotte area for the progression. But David Reagan's dad, Ken Reagan, housed him and gave him a place to start. And he was brought to Robbie Reiser's attention, and Robbie was impressed with him, and Robbie brought him to my attention. I get the credit for finding a lot of the driver talent we've had, but it's generally been somebody else in the organization that really had the first contact. But he was identified by Robbie as somebody that we should take a look at. And we gave him some support, not a lot, for a number of years in the ARCA series. He eventually won an ARCA championship, and then when we've got him in a full-time Xfinity car, then on the second year of that, it's coming to fruition.
Thank you. Go ahead, Al.
Yeah, Jack, Al Pearson, Auto Week over here.
Yes, Al.
Your Xfinity program obviously is very good and has been for years. Do you ever look into that program and find things that you need to apply to your Cup program, or are they too different and nothing will transfer?
Well, the front suspension rules for the way the shock absorbers and the bump rubbers of the Cup Series and the Xfinity Series have been different. I understand. I haven't seen it written, but I understand that the Xfinity Series is going to get the bump stops and the shock absorber retention system that the Cup guys have next year, and that will make them more similar than they've been. But the extent that we can, we've applied our software to most programs, and with the changes that need to be done for the difference in the componentry, we use the same tools. But the Aero program, one benefits the other. The way we cool our brakes and the way we cool our differential heat exchanger, and the various things that you do to affect the driver's cool and the air going in and out of the passenger compartment, those things are very similar. And the NASCAR, since they made the wheelbase the same, have allowed us to use the same chassis, minus some of the differences in, as I mentioned, the front suspension. But it's there's more information that flows from the Cup side based on the fact we have more engineers. We have one engineer per team for the Xfinity cars, but we have 3 per team for the Cup guys that work directly with the team, and that generates more ideas that wind up benefiting the Xfinity cars more than the Xfinity benefits the Cup.
Other questions for Jack? Let's come over here to the far left, Jack. Far left.
FoxSports.com, Jared Turner. Jack, I wanted to ask you just to sort of assess the outlook for your Cup program for next year. I spoke with Greg Biffle recently. He was pretty optimistic, thinking that the new low downforce package is going to sort of benefit you guys.
Yeah, we've not been a fan of the high downforce, high drag package. I'd like to think that given a set of rules, if we had the same opportunity everybody else does, we'd find the same solutions. But we've really not progressed as rapidly as some of our teammates, some of the other competitive teams have, and that's left us for not having the year in a Cup Series that we'd like to have. But we've had the 2 races with the low downforce, low drag package, and with the tires that Goodyear has brought for the 2 times that we've run them, it sure looks like that it's more lined up with the driving preference that our drivers have. And I think that they'll have more enthusiasm for it in 2016 than we've had in the last couple of years.
Let's finish up over to the far right with Chris Knight. Far right.
Chris Knight at Trends.com. Congratulations, Jack. How important was it for Roush Fenway Racing to win the championship on Ford Championship weekend?
Well, it's always great to win on any Ford event. I know my teams won when they declared the 100th anniversary of Ford Motor Company as something to be celebrated. Greg Biffle won it at MIS, which was, of course, in the backyard of the Ford Motor Company, and that was a great honor a few years ago, 2002 or 2003, I forget which. And we managed to win also when Ford had their 999th win in NASCAR. Greg managed to win that at MIS as well. So whenever you have a Ford event and the Ford's got their flag out, we've managed more than times than not to raise to the occasion. But I wish that we had a Cup Championship opportunity or a manufacturer's opportunity for a Cup Series or a Nationwide Series or Xfinity Series rather. But we missed that this year. We'll have to satisfy ourselves with winning Driver Championship with Chris and hope for the best next year.
Jack, congratulations on this championship. Certainly continues the strength of your organization, and we wish you all the best continued success in NASCAR. Thank you.
Appreciate it, Kerry. You know, we've had this is 28 years with NASCAR, and it's been a great opportunity to be involved with all the media and all the fans and all the enthusiasm that goes with it. To celebrate success is a great honor. Thank you.
Thank you very much. We're now going to call up our 2015 driver champion. Congratulations. And that's Chris Buescher. And, of course, Chris is the driver of the number 60 Fastenal Ford for Roush Fenway, and he is our 2015 NASCAR Xfinity Series champion. Congratulations, Chris. Thank you. Proud of it. 15 points ahead of defending champion Chase Elliott. And you join good company here as you become the second NASCAR Xfinity Series champion from the state of Texas, joining Bobby Labonte, who won the title in 1991. So talk about this championship and what's it feel like to be a NASCAR champion?
It's obviously pretty big. This is the biggest moment in my career. You know, just an awesome year for our organization, for our team. The guys did a tremendous job. You know, no DNFs all year, no mechanical failures, nothing that we beat ourselves on. You know, we were flawless in that regard, and it put us in the position to go out and win this thing like we did today. We didn't have to go out there and win the race in order to bring the championship home. We had to make sure we finished, and we did just that. Just so proud of the guys. Just thank you to Ford and you know, all of our sponsors, Fastenal and Roush and Advocare, and you know, everyone that came on board and helped this year. I think we ran 11 different paint schemes to make it to the end. So it was a tough year, but so happy we were able to pull it off. And again, just so proud of my team. They really stepped up to the occasion and made sure that this happened.
Questions for our champion? If you have one, raise your hand. We'll start here with Kelly.
Kelly Crandall from PopularSpeed.com. Chris, you and I have joked about your Twitter profile before. So now that you are known as the 2015 Xfinity Series champion, any plans to maybe change that?
I might have to modify that a little bit. I may or may not have thought about that already.
Good deal. Other questions for Chris? We'll go here to the front row to Kenny, and then we'll take my man from the Miami Herald.
Kenny Bruce, NASCAR.com. Chris, was it as hard as you thought it would be to win a championship?
It is every bit as stressful as I thought it would be. You know, it's always difficult. You know, this is a tremendous amount of a tremendous depth of talent through the Xfinity Series and through all the NASCAR series right now. And you know, I think that makes it that much more special, knowing that we beat some of the best guys coming up through the sport right now, and able to pull it off here at the end. I mean, it's a very, very special, very humbling experience. But you know, it's not easy. You know, this is a very difficult thing to get to, and you know, it was a lot of hard work, a lot of time put in, a lot of after hours by the guys at the shop, and making sure that we did everything we could to be here. And you know, when everybody's willing to do it and they have that drive, and you know, everybody's happy and works well together, it puts together an awesome team that has the willpower to go do this. So, you know, it was hard, but we did it better than anybody else, and that's why we get to sit here right now.
Go ahead.
Bill Van Smith, Miami Herald. This is a little bit facetious, but did you ever think about, let's make a run for the front and scare your crew?
You know, today was I had a panic moment for them. I got 3 wide one time, and they got their voices elevated over the radio. So it was something like a 3 wide middle back out. Like, that's enough. Like, it's you know, just be careful. You know, we had to come out here. I can't tell you how many times Herm told me to keep that right side clean. And just knowing that, you know, last year here a couple guys got into the fence with the right side and actually cut tires down. I don't think that we had any of that this race. A lot of guys hit the fence, but I don't think any of them ended up cutting a tire because of it. So it wasn't an issue like it was last year. But, you know, I tried to made sure that we did not get any right side damage to make it to the end, and the guys were on my case the whole time, making sure I didn't.
Let's go over here now to Jerry Jordan, and then we'll go to Bob Pockris, Chris, and Kyle. All to your right.
Jerry Jordan, kicking the tires. As Kerry pointed out, one of 2 drivers to win a championship from Texas. Talk about the transition, making the trip from Texas to Charlotte to make this happen in your career.
Yeah, I was very fortunate that I met the Reagans when I was racing Legends cars. So from Texas, we raced Legends cars out on the East Coast 3 months every summer. That's what I spent my summer vacation as a kid doing. We traveled out to Charlotte. We raced 40 to 60 races in that period of time, and we stayed very busy, worked very hard to make sure that we were able to be competitive in all those races. And, you know, through that and through a black flag I received for rough driving one week, I was fortunate enough to meet Ken Reagan and got to know David at the same time as David was getting his break over at Roush, and started driving the 6 truck with Mark Martin on that part-time basis. And, you know, got to the point where we got to be good friends, and Ken got to a point where he said, "Man, we want to help you. We'd like to see you make this. I think you can do it, but you got to move to Charlotte." He told my family that, and they're like, "Man, we can't." I have 2 younger sisters out in Texas, both very heavily involved in after-school activities. You know, their lives are out there. I can't expect them to uproot for myself. And so my parents, you know, told me we weren't going to be able to do it. And Ken said, "Well, why don't you just move in with us?" He said, "David just moved out," and he said, "You can just take his bedroom." And he said, just keep up with the yard and make sure it's mowed and kept up nice." And he said, we'll see what we can do to give you a hand. And so I left the house at just before 16 years old and moved out to Charlotte. I homeschooled through what was left of my high school years. Went and got a GED, and you know, pretty much did whatever I could to stay racing. I worked in David Reagan's shop. I helped on his late model Legends cars, and you know, they really helped me get to this point. They really gave me an opportunity that I wouldn't have had otherwise. And you know, I gotta thank my parents for being gracious enough to let me move away from home at 16 years old. That was not tough on them, but I think after today they know it was well worth it.
Let's go Bob Pockris, then to Chris and Kyle. Go ahead, Bob.
Bob Pockris, ESPN. I don't know if you heard Jack, but he said you might do full-time Cup. He might do part-time Cup. He's not really sure next year. You've talked about wanting to be patient in your development, but what more do you feel like you need to learn before you really want to be a full-time Cup driver?
I think if you look and realize that Cup drivers come down to the Xfinity level every race, there's always something to be learned, and they know that, and that's why they do it. And to me, I mean, it's part of just seat time. You know, you got to learn everything you can every race. There's always something different about a racetrack. There's similarities between the 2 race cars. Now, like Jack was talking about, with the rules as close as they are now, there are things that we can bounce back and forth. There's always something to learn. I mean, every time you get in a race car, you figure out something. So, you know, I've been clear. I'm not in a rush. If it comes around, and that's the first I've heard of that, by the way. So it's kind of like the radio interview where Jack said something 4 months ago, and I found out from my dad. But, you know, if that's what it brings, then you know, I'll do my best to prepare for it and be ready. And if not, we'll go try and double up on these Xfinity championships. So, you know, right now we're living in the moment. That's it's a big weight off our shoulders. You know, we get to calm down a little bit, get to celebrate, gonna enjoy the banquet. Gonna do some offshore fishing while we're out here in Florida, and we'll go back and gear up for 2016. Yeah, it must have for me too.
Stay on the far right. Go ahead, Chris.
Chris Knight, catchfence.com. Congratulations on the championship. Kyle Larson said that he didn't do a burnout today after winning the race because he felt like it was your weekend, it was your moment to celebrate the championship. Really humbling to hear that, and I was just wondering your thoughts on that.
Yeah, I noticed that I never heard him do anything, and that's it's a class act right there. That's pretty neat. You know, in the same sense, it was his weekend too. His isn't over. You know, he earned the right to do whatever he would have liked, and you know, I really appreciate it. But you know, he did a heck of a job. They were fast today, and they showed that they were able to pull this thing off. So, you know, congratulations to him on winning the race, and you know, it's neat to hear. I didn't realize that.
All the way to the right. Go ahead, Kyle.
Kyle Magda, Race Chaser Online. Chris, second championship in 4 years. The other one with the ARCA title in 2012. Can you just talk a little bit about the Rulo brothers there? Just the progression that you had with them, racing in 2011 and then winning the championship in 2012, and to just what did you take out of that experience to get you to where you are today?
I think at the time, ARCA was the best stepping stone to get into one of the 3 NASCAR series, the major series, and you know, I learned so much racing with the Rulo brothers. I worked in the shop. We worked 90 hours a week during the summer months trying to make sure that we had race cars on track and ready to go. You know, something that we learned from the 2 full-time years, you know, was just making sure that we were there every race. You know, you can't go to a racetrack and have a malfunction. You can't afford to skip over something in the shop. You can't afford to make a stupid mistake and find yourself 3 laps down. So our championship year in 2012 in ARCA, we finished every lap of competition that there was to be had. We never finished a lap down. We never had a DNF. And that made us realize real quick that is a huge part of points racing. And in the grand scheme of things, it's a huge part of racing in general. You can't afford to wreck race cars. I mean, it doesn't do anybody any good for points or for that race. And so, you know, there's times to be patient. There's times to get aggressive. And I learned real quick that there was a difference in those periods. And you know, we had to make sure that we were smart about it all year in 2015 to get to where we're at now. So, you know, just so much little stuff like that. As I was, you know, growing up in the sport and learning how to drive stock cars, I learned from the Rulo brothers at that time period. I'm pretty confident to say I could disassemble a race car down to a bare chassis and put it back together because of it. I mean, it's all things that you learn and understand, and makes you appreciate the amount of work that goes in these race cars, the amount of time to get a car ready for a race weekend is absolutely unreal. And when you know all that, you try really hard not to wreck them.
Mm-hmm. Final question right in the middle, Reed Spencer. Actually, we'll go to Reed, and then we'll final question, Dustin Long.
Reed Spencer with NASCAR Wire Service. Congratulations, Chris.
Thank you.
Did you have an anxious moment at all when the 3 guys that you were racing took the wave around to get back to the lead lap and you came to pit road and had to race for the lucky dog?
A little bit. I did know that they took a very different strategy, but when looking back at it, it was them on older tires. We had our stickers, and honestly, the 42 was so fast there wasn't a huge chance of them being able to pull off the victory and get the bonus points that would have put us in jeopardy. Even with us being on a different lap, I think we were still 11th on that restart, and there was only one other car that we were racing for the lucky dog, so we'd have been 12th at worst in that scenario, and our clinch spot was 13th. So from a point standpoint, no, it wasn't that bad. I mean, I knew we were in decent shape. I was just trying to get them to feed me as much information as possible, so that I knew where we were at and what we needed to do, who we needed to race. That was probably the toughest part, with the pace that Kyle set. Both Kyles. It was hard to figure out who was 1 lap down, 2, and on the lead lap. It was a very fast-paced race. Thanks. Yes, sir.
Final question, Dustin Long. Go ahead.
Dustin Long, NBC Sports. You referenced earlier the Black Flag experience, and that's kind of has set you up with I guess you said meeting with Ken Reagan. I've not heard that story. So how did that all kind of transpire, and what did you do, and just kind of how did it go to that point?
So I don't know how in depth I want to get on this story. I guess it wasn't that bad. I got black flagged 1 week for rough driving at Charlotte Motor Speedway. Quarter-mile front stretch, Legends cars. Everyone knows it's a contact sport there. You gotta do all you can do to make spots up. It was not the only time I got black flagged for rough driving there. I got sat out a week later on, maybe the next year. I got to sit in the tower and watch the race. So I said, man, if I'm not allowed to race, can I come sit with you guys in the tower? And I don't think they liked me asking that, but they let me. But the original incident, I don't remember what exactly happened. It was a heat race, and I went over to the 600, and my crew chief at the time was already good friends with the Reagans, had grew up with them and knew them, and I think Ken might have dropped a bug in his ear. He said, "You need to bring him over. Let me talk to him. I'll settle him right down." And that he did after a several-hour conversation, which conversation would imply that I was getting to talk back, but it was a learning experience. And for me, I was 12 or 13 right then. Made me realize that there's a time to go and there's a time to be patient. And from there on out, I got a little bit cleaner. Was still able to be aggressive, but knew the time and place. And I think that helped a lot. And got to be good friends with the Reagan family from there. Like I said, when I moved in with Ken and Beverly, David's parents, his older brother Adam, basically let me fit right into the family and go work at David's shop. I had to be home at 7:30 to eat dinner every night. David's shop was 300 feet down the road, so I either had to walk or ride a bike. But it was fun. I mean, that's what everyone wants to do right there, is do everything they can to get to this point, and I enjoyed every second of it.
Chris, congratulations on this championship. Enjoy it. You deserve it. And continued best of luck in NASCAR.
Thank you very much.